The crystalline spires of the Kepler archive gleamed under the pale light of Vethtar's twin suns, casting dancing shadows across the vast underground chambers that house the galaxy's most ancient secrets. Dr. Minji wiped the sweat from her scaled brow as she descended deeper into the forgotten vaults, her archaeological tools clinking softly against her utility belt. The air recyclers hummed quietly in the background, working overtime to filter the stale atmosphere that had remained undisturbed for centuries. "Kyung-ho, bring the photon scanner closer," she called to her assistant, who was floating gracefully in his anti-gravity environmental suit. His species, the Velthari, had evolved in zero-gravity environments, making him perfect for navigating the archive's complex vertical structures. "I think we've found something extraordinary." The stone tablet before them was unlike anything in the Galactic Council's historical records. Where most ancient civilizations left behind writings about their daily lives, trade routes, or religious beliefs, this tablet contained what appeared to be urgent warnings. The symbols were carved deep into the stone with desperate urgency, as if the Watcher who created it knew their time was running out. Minji's four-fingered hands trembled with excitement as she carefully brushed away 3 millennia of accumulated dust. Each stroke revealed more of the intricate carvings, depicting bipedal creatures that stood upright on 2 legs. These beings appeared small and fragile compared to the mighty Watchers who had once ruled this sector of space, yet something about the carvings suggested immense power, hidden within their seemingly weak forms. "Look at this, Kyung-ho," she whispered, pointing to a series of symbols that repeated throughout the tablet. These aren't just random warnings. The Watchers were trying to document specific characteristics of these creatures they called humans. Kyung-ho drifted closer, his large eyes reflecting the soft glow of their work lights. "The translation matrix is having difficulty with some of these concepts," he reported, consulting his handheld device. "The Watcher language uses terms that don't exist in modern galactic standard, words like devour impossibility and forge. Weapons from their own suffering appear frequently. As they worked to decode more of the tablet, the story that emerged sent chills through both researchers. According to the Watchers, these humans came from a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. What made them terrifying wasn't their size or natural weapons, but their refusal to accept limitations. The tablet described beings who somehow turned their greatest weaknesses into devastating strengths. This section here," Minji said, tracing the ancient symbols with her finger, "talks about humans who survived in environments that should have killed them, ice worlds, desert planets, even the vacuum of space itself. But they didn't just survive, they thrived and built entire civilizations in places where other species couldn't even visit. The most disturbing passages described human warfare. While other galactic species fought with honor codes and traditional tactics, humans appeared to fight with creativity and desperation that made them unpredictable. They used everything as weapons: their environment, their own bodies, even their emotions. The Watchers wrote about human warriors who became more dangerous when wounded, more determined when facing impossible odds. 3 days later, Minji stood before the assembled Galactic Council in the Great Chamber on Zentara Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular amphitheater, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated in containment fields, others skittered on multiple legs, while a few existed as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. Elder Taemin of the High Command dominated the center platform, his insectoid form towering over the other council members. His mandibles clicked impatiently as Minji presented her findings. Behind him, holographic displays showed images of the ancient tablets and rough translations of the Watcher warnings. "Primitive superstitions from a dead race," Elder Taemin declared, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic systems. The Watchers were known for their paranoia long before their mysterious extinction. They saw threats in every shadow, enemies in every star system. These tablets are probably the ravings of a dying civilization, desperate to blame their failures on mythical monsters. Councillor Sungmin from the Diplomatic Corps nodded in agreement. "Our historical records show no evidence of any species matching these descriptions. If such creatures existed, Surely we would have encountered them by now. The galaxy is thoroughly explored and catalogued, but even as the Council dismissed the warnings, something was stirring in the depths of space. Far from the gleaming cities and trade routes of galactic civilization, automated monitoring stations detected unusual patterns in the cosmic background radiation. Deep space sensors, designed to watch for asteroid threats and stellar anomalies, began picking up organized electromagnetic signals from a previously ignored solar system. The signals were complex, structured, and clearly artificial. More importantly, they were coming from the third planet of a small yellow star, exactly as the ancient tablets had described. The transmissions showed mathematical sequences, music, and what appeared to be attempts at communication with anyone who might be listening. On monitoring station Epsilon 7, Technician Haiwan stared at her displays in confusion. "These signals are getting stronger," she reported to her supervisor. "Whatever's making them is learning, adapting, improving their transmission methods with each broadcast." The signals painted a picture of a species that had achieved nuclear technology, primitive spaceflight, and was actively reaching out to the stars. More disturbing was the content of some intercepted transmissions, evidence of a species that had survived multiple near-extinction events and had spread across their entire world, adapting to every environment their planet could offer. As the Council continued their debates about ancient superstitions, the humans continued their relentless advance toward the stars, unaware that their destiny was already written in stone. Tablets gathering dust in forgotten archives across the galaxy. Ambassador Su Jin adjusted her ceremonial diplomatic robes one final time as her flagship, the Harmony of Stars, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The massive vessel, stretching over 2 kilometers in length, was accompanied by 12 escort ships, the standard diplomatic fleet for first contact with primitive civilizations. Her scaled hands smoothed the intricate patterns on her robes. That identified her rank within the Galactic Council's diplomatic corps. "Beginning standard approach protocols," announced Captain Junwoo from the bridge. His species, the Kethani, had evolved from aquatic creatures, and their calm, methodical nature made them excellent starship commanders. "Sensors indicate the third planet shows signs of advanced tool use and primitive energy generation. Nothing we haven't seen 1,000 times before." Su Jin nodded, reviewing the standard first contact procedures on her datapad. The plan was simple and had worked perfectly for centuries. Reveal themselves gradually, establish communication with the dominant species, and begin a careful integration process that typically took 200 to 300 years. By the end, the new species would become productive members of galactic society, grateful for the guidance and protection of the Council. But as their sensors began detailed scans of the blue-green world below, the first signs appeared that this contact would be different. The planet's surface was crisscrossed with artificial structures, roads, cities, and industrial complexes that covered entire continents. More concerning were the energy signatures their instruments detected. "Ambassador," called Lieutenant Yonsu, from the sensor station, her voice tight with surprise. "These readings can't be correct. The planet shows evidence of nuclear technology, chemical rockets reaching orbital velocity, and electromagnetic transmissions that span their entire world." Sojin frowned as she studied the data streaming across the main display. In her 3 centuries of diplomatic service, she had never encountered a species that had developed so rapidly. Most civilizations discovered by the Council were still using primitive agriculture or had just discovered metalworking. This species had somehow compressed millions of years of normal development into mere millennia. "Look at this," Captain Junwoo added, highlighting sections of the planet where massive cities sprawled across the landscape. "They've covered their world with artificial structures. Most species at this level of development still live in small, tribal groups, but the real shock came when their passive sensors detected the humans' response to their arrival. Within minutes of the fleet's appearance in the system, electromagnetic chatter across the planet increased exponentially. Radio transmissions bounced between continents as governments and military installations coordinated responses with frightening efficiency. "Captain, you need to see this," reported Chief Sensor Officer Min Ho, his normally steady voice betraying amazement. "The humans aren't running or hiding, they're mobilizing. The main screen displayed a real-time view of Earth's surface as military bases across multiple continents came alive with activity. Aircraft launched from hidden runways, mobile, missile platforms emerged from underground bunkers, and orbital tracking stations swiveled to focus on the alien fleet. Most remarkably, large radio telescope arrays began systematically scanning the diplomatic ships, attempting to analyze their technology and communication methods. "By the 7 moons," whispered Navigator Yunji. "They're trying to talk to us and prepare to fight us at the same time." Ambassador Su Jin watched in fascination as human space agencies worked frantically to modify their primitive rockets for potential military use. Scientists at installations across the planet collaborated in real time, sharing data and theories about alien technology with a speed that would have impressed even the most advanced Council civilizations. "This is unprecedented," she murmured, making notes for her report to the Council. "Every other species we've contacted either worshipped us as gods or fled in terror. These humans are treating us like potential allies and potential threats simultaneously." Captain Junwoo pulled up tactical displays showing human military positions. "Ambassador, their response patterns are incredibly sophisticated. They're not panicking or acting randomly. This looks like they've actually planned for something like this. Indeed, as the diplomatic fleet maintained its position at the edge of the system, human governments implemented what appeared to be pre-existing protocols for alien contact. Emergency sessions of various world bodies convened within hours, while military commanders coordinated defensive positions with the efficiency of species that had fought wars across multiple star systems. The breakthrough came when human scientists successfully decoded the diplomatic fleet's basic mathematical communication protocols. Within days, they had established rudimentary contact and proposed a meeting location, a neutral space station that humans had somehow constructed in Earth orbit using their primitive but functional rocket technology. When Ambassador Su Jin finally met with the human representative, Dr. Rachel Kim, she encountered something that would haunt her for the rest of her career. The human female arrived wearing formal diplomatic attire, but Su Jin's trained eye immediately noticed the subtle bulge of a concealed weapon. More unsettling was the briefcase the human carried, filled with mathematical proofs and technological analyses that demonstrated an understanding of galactic physics that should have been impossible for their species. "Ambassador Su Jin, Doctor," Kim said with a smile that somehow managed to be both welcoming and calculating. "We're honored by your visit and excited to learn about galactic civilization. We've prepared some questions about interstellar travel, energy systems, and defensive technologies that we hope you'll find interesting." As the human spoke about peace and cooperation, Su Jin noticed how her eyes constantly scanned the meeting room, cataloging potential threats and escape routes. This wasn't the behavior of a primitive species encountering gods from the stars. This was the response of experienced survivors who had learned that the universe was dangerous and that preparation was the key to survival. "They're not afraid," Su Jin reported to the Council later that day. "They're excited, and somehow impossibly they're ready for anything we might bring." The first contact protocols, refined over millennia of successful diplomacy, had encountered their first true challenge in the form of humanity's terrifying adaptability and their refusal to be intimidated by the impossible. The observation deck of the diplomatic station orbiting Earth had become Diplomat Hyejin's second home during the weeks following first contact. Through the reinforced viewing ports, she watched streams of human spacecraft launching from the planet's surface with increasing frequency. What had started as primitive chemical rockets had evolved into something far more sophisticated in just days. "Commander Do-hyun, you need to see this," she called to her superior, who was reviewing reports from the other Council observers. The Zephyrian commander floated over in his energy containment field, his crystalline form pulsing with curiosity. "What is it now?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would be disturbing. Hyejin pointed to the latest. "Human launch. That rocket they just sent up. Yesterday it was using conventional chemical propulsion. Today they've somehow modified it with ion drive technology. They're iterating and improving their designs faster than we can analyze them." Do-hyun's energy field flickered with what his species displayed as concern. "That's impossible. The Velthari took 3 centuries to develop ion propulsion after they achieved orbital flight. These humans have done it in 3 weeks. But impossibility seemed to be humanity's specialty. In the short time since first contact, human engineers had not only analyzed the exotic materials used in Council spacecraft, but had begun creating crude versions of their own. Their manufacturing facilities, which had been producing simple electronics and basic metals, had somehow been retooled to attempt replication of advanced alloys that should have required industrial processes beyond their civilization's capabilities. Dr. Lisa Park, one of the human scientists assigned to the Cultural Exchange Program, had become a particular source of fascination and concern for the Council observers. During their daily meetings, she would arrive with increasingly sophisticated questions that revealed an understanding of galactic technology that grew exponentially each day. Diplomat Haye Jin, Dr. Park said during one of their sessions, "We've been analyzing the energy signatures from your ships. The power source appears to be some form of controlled stellar fusion, but the containment method is unlike anything in our theoretical models. Could you explain how you prevent the plasma from destabilizing during dimensional transitions?" The question hit Hee-jin like a physical blow. Humans weren't supposed to know about dimensional transitions. That was advanced physics that most Council species didn't master until they'd been part of galactic civilization for centuries. Yet somehow, this human had deduced the existence of the technology just from observing their ship's energy patterns. How? How did you? Hee-jin began, then stopped herself. Dr. Park, dimensional physics is extremely advanced. Most species require decades of study to understand even the basic principles. Dr. Park smiled, that unnerving human expression that somehow conveyed both friendliness and predatory intelligence. We've been working on it for about a week. Our theoretical physics team has some interesting ideas about manipulating space-time that might interest your scientists. The weekly reports Hye-jin sent to the Council grew more alarming with each transmission. Human scientists weren't just learning about galactic technology, they were improving upon it. When presented with examples of Council computing systems, human engineers had immediately identified inefficiencies and proposed modifications that would increase processing power by factors that made seasoned Council technicians question their own expertise. They don't just solve problems, Hye-jin reported to Commander Do-hyun during their daily briefings. They refuse to accept that problems exist. When faced with the impossibility of faster-than-light travel, they've already begun theoretical work that our best scientists consider fantasy. The most unsettling discovery came during a joint scientific presentation. Human scientists Dr. Johnson and Dr. Patel had been given access to basic Council technology manuals, documents that were considered safe for primitive species, because they described principles that typically took generations to master. Instead, the humans had used these manuals as starting points for their own innovations. "We've been studying your gravity manipulation systems," Dr. Johnson explained to the assembled Council observers, his presentation displaying complex mathematical equations that made even the advanced species scientists lean forward with interest. "Your approach is elegant, but we think there might be more efficient methods." Dr. Patel activated a holographic display showing their theoretical improvements. By adjusting the field harmonics and introducing quantum entanglement at the particle level, we calculate a 40% increase in efficiency with significantly reduced power requirements. The Council's chief scientist, Elder Chulwu of the Kethani, examined the humans' work with growing amazement. His species had spent millennia perfecting gravity manipulation, yet these newcomers had identified improvements that had eluded galactic civilization's finest minds. "This is impossible," he whispered to his aide. "They've been exposed to our technology for less than a month, yet they're proposing modifications that our own research teams have been working on for decades." But the humans weren't finished. Dr. Johnson continued his presentation, describing how they had reverse-engineered the basic principles of Council technology and extrapolated them into entirely new applications. Their proposals included weapon systems that could disable enemy ships without destroying them, defensive shields that could absorb and redirect energy attacks, and propulsion systems that could theoretically achieve speeds that exceeded current galactic standards. "We don't see barriers," Dr. Johnson explained with that unnerving human smile when Elder Cholwu asked how they had accomplished so much so quickly. "We see puzzles waiting to be solved. Every limitation is just a challenge that hasn't been overcome yet." The humans' approach to problem-solving was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Where other species specialized in specific areas of expertise, humans seemed to be generalists who could adapt their knowledge across disciplines with frightening effectiveness. Their scientists worked in collaborative networks that spanned their entire planet, sharing information and building upon each other's discoveries with a speed that would have been impossible for more traditional civilizations. More disturbing was their attitude toward failure. When their experiments didn't work, they didn't abandon the approach. They analyzed what went wrong and used that information to improve their next attempt. Failed experiments became learning opportunities, and each setback seemed to drive them toward success with renewed determination. Elder Dongwook of the Council, who had initially dismissed the ancient Watcher warnings as primitive superstition, found himself reviewing those tablets with new understanding. The phrase, "devourers," of impossibility, no longer seemed like the ravings of a paranoid civilization. It seemed like a desperately accurate description of humanity's most terrifying trait. As he watched human spacecraft performing maneuvers that should have been beyond their capabilities, using technologies they had developed in mere weeks, Elder Dongwook began to understand that the Council hadn't discovered a new species to guide into galactic civilization. They had awakened something that would reshape the galaxy itself. The emergency session of the Galactic Council's Security Committee convened in the heavily shielded chambers deep beneath Zentara Prime's surface. General Seung-min paced before the assembled military leaders, his 6 legs clicking against the metal floor with each agitated step. His species, the Thrakani, had evolved from predatory hunters, and his instincts were screaming that humanity represented a threat unlike any they had faced. "Look at these reports," he growled, projecting holographic displays showing human technological progress. "In 3 months, they've gone from primitive chemical rockets to vessels that our sensors can barely track. Their learning curve isn't just steep, it's vertical." Admiral Yoon Seo, her aquatic form floating in a specialized life support tank, studied the data with growing unease. "General, their progress is unprecedented, but they haven't shown any hostile intentions. Perhaps we should continue diplomatic channels." Diplomatic channels. General Seung-min's mandibles clicked in dismissal. "Admiral, they're developing weapons technology faster than civilizations that have been spacefaring for millennia. Their peaceful research stations are conducting experiments that our own military scientists consider theoretical impossibilities." The evidence was compelling. Human industrial facilities had been repurposed with stunning efficiency to produce materials that shouldn't have been possible with their technological base. Their communication networks showed coordination between research centers across their planet that rivaled the most advanced Council military operations. Most disturbing were the energy signatures detected from human installations, power levels that suggested they were attempting to harness forces that even mature galactic civilizations approached with extreme caution. "I propose Operation Silent Guidance," General Seung-min announced, activating classified files that required high-level security clearance. "Subtle intervention to slow their development. Nothing traceable, nothing that could be considered an act of war. Just technological setbacks that will give us time to understand what we're dealing with." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Advanced computer viruses would infiltrate human networks, causing system failures that would set back their research programs. Sabotaged components would be introduced into their supply chains, causing critical failures in their most advanced projects. Electromagnetic interference would disrupt their communications during crucial experiments. Each incident would appear to be natural technological growing pains. Colonel Jin Woo, the Council's chief of covert operations, outlined the specifics during the classified briefing. "We'll target their most advanced facilities first. Their space centers, quantum research laboratories, and artificial intelligence projects. Small failures that will force them to rebuild and redesign, buying us years of breathing room." The operation began with surgical precision. Human space launches started experiencing mysterious engine failures just before critical orbital insertions. Computer systems at major research universities suffered inexplicable crashes that corrupted months of data. Advanced manufacturing. Equipment developed subtle flaws that ruined expensive prototypes and set back production schedules. For exactly 3 months, the sabotage campaign proceeded according to plan. Human progress slowed as they dealt with an increasing number of technical failures. Council observers reported with satisfaction that humanity's rapid advancement had finally hit obstacles they couldn't overcome. Then everything changed. The first sign came when human engineers at the Kennedy Space Center successfully launched a mission using engines that had been deliberately sabotaged the day before. Not only had they detected the sabotage, but they had somehow used the corrupted components to create a more efficient propulsion system than the original design. "This is impossible," reported Agent Haywan from her surveillance post on Luna. "The engine modifications we introduced should have caused complete system failure. Instead, the humans have turned them into improvements." But that was only the beginning. At MIT, researchers investigating computer system failures discovered the alien viruses and reverse-engineered them to create quantum encryption protocols that surpassed anything in the Council's databases. The electromagnetic interference designed to disrupt human communications became the foundation for a new type of faster-than-light communication system that made instantaneous contact across solar system distances possible. General Xiong Min watched the reports with growing horror as each sabotage attempt backfired spectacularly. "They're not just overcoming our obstacles," he reported to the Emergency Council session. "They're using our attacks as learning opportunities. Every failure we cause teaches them something new." The humans' response to the sabotage campaign revealed their most terrifying characteristic. They treated enemy action as a form of advanced education. When their computers were attacked, they didn't just defend themselves. They studied the attacking programs and used that knowledge to create better systems. When their rockets were sabotaged, they analyzed the sabotage methods and incorporated the techniques into improved designs. Dr. Elizabeth Wong, leading humanity's newly formed Xenotechnology Analysis Division, published papers that made Council. Scientists questioned everything they thought they knew about physics. Her team had taken the sabotage attempts and used them as starting points for revolutionary breakthroughs in energy manipulation, materials science, and space-time mathematics. The final humiliation came when human ships arrived at the Council chambers 6 months after the sabotage campaign began. Admiral Yoon Seo barely recognized the sleek vessels that dropped out of hyperspace with impossible grace. The primitive chemical rockets she had observed during first contact were gone, replaced by craft that moved through space in ways that defied established physics. The ships didn't just travel faster than light, they seemed to bend space around themselves, creating localized distortions that allowed them to achieve speeds that made Council vessels look like ancient relics. Their hulls were composed of materials that absorbed and redirected energy attacks, turning potential weapons fire into additional power for their systems. Ambassador Dr. Chen led the human delegation into the Council chambers with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages. His presentation was devastating in its clinical precision, displaying detailed records of every sabotage attempt, along with analysis of how each attack had been converted into technological advancement. "We know what you tried to do," he said calmly, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "We're not angry. We're grateful. You've helped us advance by centuries in mere months." The holographic displays showed side-by-side comparisons of human technology before and after the sabotage campaign. The improvements were staggering. Weapon systems that could disable entire fleets without destroying them. Defensive shields that made their ships nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. Propulsion technology that opened possibilities for exploring beyond the galaxy itself. "You've taught us that the universe is more dangerous than we initially believed," Dr. Chen continued. "You've shown us that we need to be prepared for species that will attack first and ask questions later. Most importantly, you've given us the tools to defend ourselves and others who might face similar threats." The ultimatum was delivered with polite firmness that somehow made it more threatening than any military display could have been. Treat humanity as equals in all future galactic affairs, or discover what happens when you make enemies of a species that turns every attack into an advantage. As the human delegation prepared to leave, General Shung Min realized that their fear-driven attempt to control humanity had created exactly what they had tried to prevent. A species with the motivation and capability to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The deepest vaults of the Kepler archive had remained sealed for over a millennium, their contents deemed too dangerous or disturbing for general study. Dr. Minji descended into these forbidden levels with trembling hands, her archaeological scanner detecting energy signatures that defied explanation. The emergency authorization from the Galactic Council had come through just hours after human fleets had demonstrated technology that surpassed anything in known space. The final chamber, she whispered to herself, as ancient locks disengaged with a sound like dying stars. Inside, crystalline storage devices hummed with residual power, their surfaces covered in Watcher script so complex that her translation matrix struggled to process the layered meanings. What she found there changed everything. The tablets weren't warnings about humanity's potential future. They were historical records of humanity's forgotten past. The Watchers hadn't been the first civilization to encounter humans. They had been refugees, survivors of the last time humanity had ventured beyond their home world eons ago. As Minji worked through the night, translating the final testimony of a dying civilization, a picture emerged that sent ice through her veins. The galaxy had once been home to hundreds of advanced civilizations, each with their own territories and technologies. The mysterious disappearance of these ancient peoples had puzzled archaeologists for millennia, with theories ranging from galactic plagues to interdimensional invasions. The truth was far more terrifying and strangely beautiful. Humanity's first expansion into space hadn't been through conquest or war. They had simply grown, spread, and absorbed everything in their path through sheer irresistible momentum. The Watcher records described humans who arrived as explorers and traders, offering partnership and shared knowledge. Within generations, every civilization they encountered had become part of an ever-expanding human diaspora. "They didn't destroy us," read one tablet that made Minji's blood run cold. "They welcomed us. They learned from us. They improved upon everything we had built. And somehow, in the process of helping us become better than we ever dreamed possible, they made us human." The records told of Zephyrian energy beings who had joined human exploration fleets, their crystalline forms housing hybrid consciousnesses that combined both species' capabilities. Aquatic Cathani had modified human underwater cities into marvels that surpassed anything either species could have created alone. Insectoid Thrakani had collaborated with human architects to build megastructures that spanned entire star systems. But the most chilling revelation was what had happened to the humans themselves. Each absorbed civilization had contributed something unique to human development, creating hybrid cultures that retained the core human drive for growth and improvement, while incorporating the best aspects of every species they encountered. The expansion had continued for millennia, until it reached beyond the galaxy's edge, seeking new challenges in the vast darkness between stars. The current humans on Earth were descendants of those who had chosen to remain behind, starting civilization anew on their homeworld. The tablet suggested this wasn't the first time humanity had reset their development, beginning again from primitive origins, while their expanded cousins explored realms beyond galactic boundaries. Dr. Minji transmitted her findings to the Council, just as reports arrived of human exploration fleets launching from Earth's orbital shipyards. These weren't the primitive vessels that had first made contact months earlier. These were ships that moved through space like living creatures, their hulls rippling with technologies that seemed to bend reality itself. Counselor Jin Wu read Minji's report in his private chambers, each revelation hitting him like physical blows. The document painted a picture of humanity that was simultaneously terrifying and inspiring. They weren't conquerors in any traditional sense. They were transformers, catalysts that turned every civilization they encountered into something greater than it had been before. As he finished reading, urgent messages flooded his communication systems. Human survey teams had begun mapping hyperspace routes beyond the galaxy's spiral arms, preparing for journeys that would take them into the cosmic void where no known species had ever ventured. Their ships carried crews that included volunteers from every council species, beings who had somehow been inspired to join humanity's impossible quest to explore the unexplorable. They see the impossible as merely inconvenient, Minji had written in her final analysis. They will not be stopped, contained, or controlled. They can only be joined. The evidence was overwhelming. Human manufacturing facilities were producing spacecraft using principles that violated established physics. Their crews included council citizens who had volunteered for missions that would take them beyond the edge of known space into regions where the very concept of distance became meaningless. Most disturbing was the enthusiasm with which these volunteers embraced their fate, speaking of humanity's expansion as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. Elder Dongwook called an emergency session of the full council as reports continued streaming in. Human exploration vessels had begun disappearing beyond the galaxy's edge, not destroyed, but simply continuing their journey into realms that existed beyond conventional spacetime. Each departure was accompanied by messages of discovery and wonder, transmitted across impossible distances by communication methods that shouldn't have existed. "We have a choice," Elder Dongwook announced to the assembled representatives. "We can resist this expansion and be left behind as humanity ventures into realms we cannot imagine, or we can join them and become part of something greater than any of our civilizations could achieve alone." The debate that followed was brief. Species after species stepped forward to volunteer for humanity's exploration missions. The Zephyrians offered their energy manipulation expertise for powering impossible journeys. The Cathani provided biological adaptation technologies for surviving in unknown environments. Even the proud Thrakani military caste requested assignment to human exploration fleets, eager to face challenges that would test their warrior skills against the universe itself. Captain Yu Jin, recently promoted to lead the first joint human council exploration fleet, addressed the assembled volunteers with words that would echo through galactic history. "We're not just exploring space," she said. "We're exploring possibility itself. Every impossible thing we encounter becomes possible through human determination and your unique contributions." As the first mixed crews departed for the cosmic void beyond the galaxy, Dr. Minji watched from her observatory on Vethtar. The ancient Watcher warnings had been proven accurate in ways their authors never could have imagined. Humanity wouldn't destroy galactic civilization. They would transform it into something unrecognizable and magnificent. The galaxy held its breath as humanity once again began their irresistible expansion into the impossible, carrying every willing species with them toward challenges that would have paralyzed any other civilization with fear. But for humans, the unknown darkness between galaxies represented just another puzzle waiting to be solved, another impossibility ready to become inevitable. In the end, there was no real choice at all. The tide of human expansion had begun again, and this time they wouldn't be traveling alone. The end.